Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sage ROI micro webinar. I am your host, Amy Keenan, founder of the ISV Society, here to share some of the ways you can learn about ROI from Solver, Flywire, and Avalara, because it's all about those measurable results, right? We want to know how we're going to save money, how we're going to save time, how it's going to make our jobs easier. So why not just focus on that piece of the puzzle when talking about these different solutions? We are recording this webinar and we'll be sending out the recording to all of those who register and or attend today. This is our lineup: Solver, Flywire, then Avalara. They'll each present for roughly 20-ish minutes. And you'll walk away with some measurable ROI, and hopefully that will help further your decision on moving forward. With that, I would like to welcome Enlin from Solver to kick things off. Welcome, Enlin.
Thank you, Amy. So to start today's presentation, my name is Enlin, Solutions Engineer here with Solver. I want to talk about how you can cut your budget cycle time in half with AI accelerated xFP&A. So first, I want to talk about what is Solver. Solver is an AI accelerated extended financial planning and analysis solution. It's extended means that it offers a solution beyond the offices of finance to areas like sales, marketing, operations, HR, and beyond. Solver xFP&A solution includes everything that you see here on the wheel on the left. It's planning. That's what we're going to focus on today when we get to the demo. That's budgeting, forecasting, workflow. Of course, after your planning, you need financial reporting and putting together reporting packages that can come from multiple data sources into Solver. Obviously, from ERP like Sage, any Sage product like Sage Intacct, Sage 100, but also non-ERP data sources like your CRM, like a HubSpot or Salesforce. We can also bring in payroll data like headcount or other operational data that might be sitting in various data sources. Moving along the wheel here, next is analysis. Think rich dashboard and KPIs that takes your data and turns it into insight by helping answer questions that you didn't even know you had. When you see it in a visual format rather than a traditional table format, insights will pop out at you, and it helps accelerate intelligent decisions. And finally, on the left here, Solver is a powerful consolidation tool, bringing together, say, multiple companies, multiple currency, multiple ERPs even, allowing you to have access to all your history while being able to refresh your latest data for reporting and planning purposes. Now, imagine with me, if you have a specialist in every area of FP&A, that would be our dream, right? Someone to gather the data for us, organize it, then analyze the results, make forecasts, develop recommendations around those, then help us build that into a model that can be repeatable, present findings, and generate reports for board meeting, executive meetings, and making decisions. If we had all that help, how do you think that will help you and your organization make faster and more intelligent decisions? It'll probably give you a lot of value, and it will drive a lot of time and headspace to focus on higher value tasks. But there's a challenge in getting all of this together, and we're sorry, went the wrong way here. There's a challenge in getting all of this together here, and that's mainly around data. What many businesses have in terms of challenges today is there's no single source of truth in terms of data that really slow down decision making. There's no visibility. The burdensome manual process is error prone. And then heavy reliance on Excel and for budgeting and forecasting, it lacks real-time updates, right? So 45% of the team spent their time on activities like data collection and validation. And 72% of CFOs are really looking to invest money in FP&A and how to streamline the budgeting process. So Solver is offering a solution to this challenge. We're built around data, connecting multiple data sources for a single source of truth, right? We talked about all the Sage products can be connected directly to Solver. We also have other pre-built connectors, again, to your CRM or HRIS, and even just like a flat file can be uploaded into Solver's data warehouse. And sitting in the middle is our data warehouse that's hosted on Azure, that single source of truth. And then all the people that are on the right here of the slide, that your executives, your department manager can interact with Solver and use all the planning, reporting, and consolidation functionality via a web browser. They use it to consume their reports, input their budget, leverage Solver's Copilot AI to give them their insight. And now all of those reports are no longer just sitting in someone's email attachment. This is all sitting on Solver's data warehouse. The refresh will just be by a click of a button. People that are power users in Solver design those reports. And the Solver Designer add-in is an Excel add-in. All the Excel formulas that you love and the formatting that you are used to will just work. So now everything is living in that one source of truth in Solver here. Okay. Next slide here is just to show you how organization reduces their budget time by 50%. So I'm going to give you a live demo here. In terms of Solver, we have two main areas. I'm going to first focus on the planning area since we're talking about how to cut budget cycle time by 50% here. You can see here, I have various budget input templates, we call them. And they are designed to capture various detail around budgeting. We have personnel templates that can really capture the salary level information. We have expenses that can capture not only by department, but also line item detail. So I'm going to go in here and describe to you how that works. So in this input template, you can see at the top, I have various parameters. So Solver input templates are designed to capture various dimension or parameter details. You can choose what department you're planning for, what period you want your actuals to come through from, till what budget scenario you're planning for as well. Everything on the down below here, you can see anything that's like a green cell. Those are input rows. You have the ability to directly input a budget number right here. So if I were to change the travel number to $10,000, I can update that just by inputting it. Now I've made changes and I can click Save Data, and that will save directly back to Solver's data warehouse. Now, not only can I input the line directly in here, but I also have the ability to input line item detail. So if I were to click into this cell that says this cell is locked, the reason it's locked because Solver actually has the ability to capture more detail right down below the screen here. So if I see the $89,000 here, that is made up of 3 line items. I have vendor 1, 2, or 3 here that makes up my marketing budget. I have the ability to change this from one number to another, and that will automatically update my details above. Once you hit save, this will all get saved back to Solver's data warehouse instantaneously with this associated parameter for this budget input template. So now you ask, once I have created this budget, how can I report out my final budget? Solver has that reporting capability built in, like I mentioned. You can come directly here. Now you're thinking on a monthly basis after I've completed my budget, if I'm tracking my budget versus actual, how would that look? So you go here and take, let's see here, budget versus actual. When you're looking at your budget versus actual, Solver not only has the ability to compare your current period. So you have your current budget, you have your actuals. You can also have a forecast scenario, and then what that variance is between your forecast and your budget here. You can track it not only by your revenue and your COGS by accounts, you can also track it by department as well. And you can give the ability to drill down into more line item detail right here. And Solver has the ability to give you a drill down. If you're looking at what makes up that 2.1 million, right here, I can drill down and go into the general ledger detail, and it pulls up the actual transactional detail right here that makes up that 2.1 million. So not only are you getting a visual of what your budget versus actual look like from, you can have a graphical representation, you have a table format, you also have the ability to drill down directly all within one screen. So it eliminates the time of you talking with your department manager, going back and forth. If they want additional transactional detail, you don't have to go back to your finance department just to run the transactional detail report. This is all done in one place and one screen. Your department managers can self-service a lot of this requests here. Okay. So finally, I want to come back to share with you Solver is designed to not only accelerate decision for all the Sage customers. We also have design in mind around industry. We design industry solutions for some of the industry that we have called out here. What these are really pre-built templates and pre-built data connector that can be easily leveraged for example, a nonprofit industry. So when you are installing a solver for a nonprofit business, we have those ready to go, and it really accelerates your configuration time so you can get to go live much quicker. And these are reports and templates that are already designed with your KPIs and your decision-making framework in mind. So these are some of the example industry out that we have. So in the manufacturing business, you're probably thinking about plan, production, capacity planning, tracking profitability by product, and that's very different than the nonprofit business. Okay. And then finally, I want to thank you for this opportunity to present ROI and what Solver can offer. I want to leave you with a white paper on 6 tech trends to watch in 2026. You can scan the QR code here to download this white paper. I'm happy to schedule any individual demo to look into your specific use case. And feel free to reach out after this call.
Thank you, Enlin. I feel
Yeah,
like
thank
just
you.
having all of the numbers just in one spot saves everybody a ton of time because they don't have to go fishing for any numbers and any reports. You have everything pre-built. So a lot of time
Absolutely.
saving there. All right, next
Absolutely.
up. Thank you so much. And we're up moving to Melanie from Flywire. Are you ready, Melanie?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having us, Amy.
Sure.
And I'll make sure y'all can actually see my screen.
I,
Perfect.
I see it.
So, team, awesome. Team, thanks so much for having us. As Amy mentioned, I'm Melanie Bowman. I work with finance teams at Flywire, specifically Sage Intacct customers who are looking to get more out of their accounts receivable processes. So today I wanted to share some market data, some trends we're seeing across finance teams, as well as a customer success story that illustrates what's possible when organizations do modernize their invoice to cash process. So jumping in, quick context on me. I've spent nearly 9 years working in back office automation and payments. So really helping finance teams modernize their accounts receivable processes as well as improve their cash flow. Everything that I am sharing today comes directly from conversations I'm having with finance leaders as well as Sage Intacct customers. Before we get into the challenges that those finance teams are seeing and facing today, I did want to provide a little bit more context on Flywire. So Flywire is a global software as well as payments company. While many organizations initially really know us for that payments piece, the product finance teams interact with day to day is called Invoiced, our accounts receivables automation platform. And what really makes Flywire unique is that we're bringing together that software, payments, and services into a single platform designed to support the entire invoice to cash process. So today we're supporting over 4,000 organizations globally. We're operating in more than 230 countries and territories, and we move more than $25 billion worth of cash annually through our payments network. Now, for Sage Intacct customers specifically, Invoice works along Sage through a two-way integration, really helping finance teams modernize their receivables without replacing their ERP. That combination of software with payments is really important because many of the challenges that teams face today aren't isolated to collections or payments alone. They really do span the entire invoice to cash process. With that, then the natural question becomes, where exactly are finance teams feeling that pressure? And what we're seeing in conversations with our Intacct customers is that we consistently hear that the ERP is doing its job really well. It's everything that's happening around that's the challenge. We're talking about the billing workflows, the collections follow-ups, cash application, customer payment experiences. They're really the areas where the manual work tends to accumulate as the organizations grow. And that's really why Flywire, has solutions like Invoiced to extend Sage Intacct's capabilities with purpose-built accounts receivable automation while keeping Sage as the source of truth. And to set the stage on why this matters, the data on the right comes from a survey that we conducted in December of 300 US finance leaders. So you can see some pretty big numbers here. 92% of finance folks said that their accounts receivable workload has increased over the past year. 83% has cited poor system integrations as one of the major challenges that they're facing with that. And another 79% have identified manual accounts receivables processes as a significant problem. So what does that mean? These are Sage customers. These are also NetSuite customers, Dynamics, etc. People who are utilizing ERP systems, and they're seeing these challenges consistently, regardless of the ERP that's being used. Essentially, finance teams are being asked to handle more invoices, more payments, and more complexity, often without those additional resources. So let's dive into the numbers a little bit further and what's driving this. When we look at where the low workload is actually coming from, it isn't just a single process. It's friction that's accumulating throughout the entire invoice to cash life cycle. So it starts at the beginning with actually having the customer being onboarded and starting the billing process, then doing the invoice creation, delivery of those invoices, the collections and those follow-up activities on that, and then the payment experience itself. And once all of that part is done, we've got the back end of doing the reporting, the cash application, reconciliation, etc. So we're consistently seeing that organizations often have a strong system to support these individual pieces of the process, but the challenges is that those stages are frequently operating within silos. So teams are manually following up on these invoices. You hear the classic customer story of, I never got that invoice. Can you send it to me again, please? They're managing the collections in spreadsheets, trying to see who do I have to call today? That this person give me a promise to pay? What's exactly going on here? I need to talk to somebody, but I don't know who to prioritize. And they're also spending a significant time on reconciling the transactions themselves. So when you step back and you say, okay, individually, these activities, they don't seem like very major issues. But when you replicate this across hundreds and oftentimes thousands of invoices, it becomes a significant operational burden. And that's exactly what many finance leaders are describing to me today and what I hear in my day-to-day conversations. It's also why organizations are increasingly looking for solutions that can connect these workflows together without creating another IT project, The last thing we want to do is feel like we have to do an entire overhaul of our ERP system that we spend so much time, money, and resources already inputting in the first place. So in the case of Sage Intacct, and what I really love with Flywire's ERP agnostic systems from an invoice standpoint is that there's already an integration with Sage Intacct that's built. So teams can truly connect invoicing, collections, payments, reconciliation without replacing your ERP system or building these crazy custom integrations that take a ton of time, take a lot of money, and might not even work the way that we had envisioned it originally. So when we dive into then the statistics of where the burden from an accounts receivables process is really coming from and what is growing there, it really helps us quantify what we're experiencing today. We already saw this number at the top left, right? 92% are in agreement. The workloads are increasing. What else are they saying though? So 86% of folks are saying that team bandwidth is tied specifically in payment related activities. What does that mean? Basically, people say, I don't know how to pay you, or I'm just going to send you a check. The check takes forever to get there. We're talking about cash flow. There's just a lot of issues that come from that process. So reducing the payment friction aspect itself is going to be very critical for organizations as we continue to digitize and move into this new working environment. 81% of teams say that they're spending too much time on work that could be automated on that same note. When we then think about integrations, that's where the fear always comes in. Are you already in Sage Intacct? Do you already have an integration set up? 83% cite that integration challenges continue to be an issue when we're looking at systems communicating. And then the one thing I hear most often from growing organizations is that 70%, so nearly 8 in 10 finance leaders, say they struggle to scale invoice volume without adding headcount. So revenue increases, customer volume increases, invoice volume increases, but then finance teams are just expected to support that growth without growing the resources at the same pace. And that's not sustainable in the long term, and where we see all of these things overlapping with each other. That leads us then to the final stat of 87% saying that operational inefficiencies in payments regularly cost their organizations money. So at that point, improving the accounts receivable process isn't simply an efficiency initiative, it becomes a business performance initiative. So what does happen when organizations actually address these challenges? When teams connect those workflows, they reduce the manual effort, and here's what they're commonly seeing. Approximately a 14-day reduction in lowering of DSO. That's huge for a lot of teams when you consider net payment terms, all of that fun stuff. A 70% decrease in the time spent on reconciliation. 60% faster settlement, again, going back into the payments piece and actually getting funds from a global perspective. And then 45% fewer customer billing inquiries. The reconciliation metric is usually one that resonates the most with finance leaders because when payments are automatically matched to invoices and the cash application process becomes largely automated, the team can recover a tremendous amount of time that was previously spent on that manual work. One example I like to give is our Sage Intacct customer, iWave. They are a SaaS company based in Canada. Before they implemented Invoice and Flywire, they were averaging more than 50 days to collect payments. But after the implementation, they actually were able to reduce that time by nearly 20 days. I mean, that's just massive. 50 to less than 20 days less is huge when you think about it. Their VP of Finance, they summed it up really well. We've shaved almost 20 days from our time to collect, which we didn't think was possible. I mean, people are doubtful of there being a way to improve the process because it's just always been so status quo. Like, that's just how finance is. That's just how accounts receivables work. When they see that there's an alternative, it's amazing to see those customers actually see the results that they were hoping for and were promised. And that's really what I like about this story as well, is it's not the result of a major ERP transformation project. It was by connecting the right tools to to the processes that surround the accounts receivables and getting to a value quickly. We're reducing the friction from the invoice to cash process so that those finance teams can spend less time on managing receivables and more time on actually supporting the business. And what I also always like to say is they can also spend the time to actually go on a vacation and not come back to an inbox of like 300 emails and everybody panicking as to where did the finance team person go? I need help. We need to make sure that our people can take care of themselves at the end of the day also, right? So as y'all think about your own organizations, the question isn't whether there's the opportunity to improve accounts receivables. The question is exactly where those opportunities actually exist today. So if we're thinking it's collections, reconciliation efforts, payment friction, or scaling operations without adding that headcount, those are the challenges we consistently hear finance teams talking about. So if the discussion today sounded familiar, I'd be happy to continue the conversation afterward and share what other Sage Intacct customers are doing to address those challenges. Thank you again for your time. I'm Melanie Bowman from Flywire, and I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you, Melody. It's crazy how much 20 days is huge. That's for sure.
Absolutely massive. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Last but not least, we have Michael from Avalara. Are you ready, Michael?
I
Ready to
am
prove the
ready.
ROI around sales tax now?
Oh yeah, fun times. All right. So my name's Mike Hewlett. I work with Avalara. I've been working with Avalara for about 7 years. I've been aligned to Sage this entire time, so I feel like I work more for Sage than I do Avalara. I work in all the Sage ecosystems, Sage Intacct, Sage 100, 300, 500, X3, Sage 50. Pretty much across the board, I talk to Sage customers every day. So I understand their compliance challenges, probably better than most of them do, just because I live and eat and sleep and breathe it every day. And at Avalara, we have a saying: "There's only two guarantees in life. That's death and taxes." And Avalara, we can help you with one of those. Why is tax hard, right? Like first and foremost, tax is only exciting to like a very sliver group of people. Most of the finance people I talk with, they went to school because they're interested in numbers and they love helping businesses grow, and they're very dynamic thinkers from the new accountant all the way up to the Fortune 100 CFO, right? Everybody is looking to leverage the numbers to make the business grow. But tax is this other side of the ballpark that they have to pay attention to, and it keeps rearing its ugly head into the finance department, sucking the finance team's time away, to where they would love to be focused on close to the dollar, focused on dynamically thinking on how to make the company business, when unfortunately tax is getting more and more complex, and more finance teams don't have the understanding of the complexities of the intricacies of the different tax issues and compliance issues. So they kind of get left behind in a lot of sense, because there's not a lot of people going to school for quote unquote tax. That's why Avalara exists. So just to give you a little background in Avalara, we're the number one tax technology company globally. We have more customers than all of our competition combined, about 43 to 45,000 customers. We're one of the largest providers, if not the largest provider of day-to-day returns in the country. We've got more integrations to different ERPs, accounting platforms than anybody. And when it comes to, the relationships, when Avalara applies the tax on an invoice, we are applying the data that comes directly over from the states themselves. We don't make up the tax, if you will. So, why is it hard for you guys in the growing complex market landscape? Well, first and foremost, something happened in 2018 called the Wayfair ruling, where Wayfair went up against South Dakota and said, hey, or South Dakota went up against Wayfair, and South Dakota said, hey, we want the tax when you sell into our state. Wayfair's like, we're good, we're not doing that. And that went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and Wayfair lost. South Dakota won, became a national law. Now every state has economic nexus requirements. If you sell a certain amount into a specific state, you meet the requirements to collect and remit in that state. So I think that a lot of us may have remembered when you didn't get charged tax when you bought something on Amazon. Now all of a sudden you do. So think about all these businesses as they mature outside of their state, whether they're selling, physically going into that state, or post COVID, everybody works remote employees, or we have an e-commerce location. We're selling uh, all over the country, and every time you make those decisions, you're creating nexus, which is the obligation to register to collect the tax from the customer and give it to the state. You're just a middleman. So that's a burden to the company that they have to comply by, or they owe big, big bucks to the states if they don't keep up with it. So a lot of complexity. And that complexity isn't really just around sales tax and use tax. Unfortunately, it starts, when you start a business, you've got to, get licenses and permits, and you have to deal with property tax, and that all creates complexity. Then you have a business and you have got an ERP and you're selling online through Sage or an accounting platform. Well, now you have to collect that information, you have to report on it, and then when it comes time, each state has a different filing requirement. You have to remit at a different time to a different state with a different filing schedule. And again, everybody who's an accounting person did not go to school to deal with tax, but it is a foundation of what you have to do when you have a successful company, right? So with Avalara, we cover pretty much across the board. We help you with the sales tax automation. Sage Intacct wrote an integration into Sage. So every instance of Intacct has Avalara turned off, waiting to be turned on. We take over the native tax functionality in all the Sages, 100, 300, 500, X3. When you turn it on, when you go through a setup process, well, you tell us who you are, what you do, where you do it. And when that's all done, when you have an invoice, whether it's in Sage or another accounting platform, like a shopping cart, we apply the correct tax right on the invoice in real time. So we're always going to keep you up to date when it comes to that tax automation. And then we take detailed reporting, and then we take that reporting and we can remit to the state on your behalf. But the unfortunate reality with with tax is there's another piece of the puzzle, and that's exemptions and exempt sales, right? And our Sage customers get into a lot of trouble really fast because what they do is they have a perception that they don't need to pay tax because they're exempt, or they have a lot of certificates and they get a certificate once and they forget about it. Well, what happens is we'll have an exempt customer or a customer that's selling exempt products all over the country, and they think, oh, my products are exempt, my services are exempt, I don't need to collect and I don't need to remit. Well, it's a big wake up call when I tell Sage customers on calls every single day, probably 4 times a week it happens. Well, I'll say, hey, were you aware that 80% of the states have a law where you have the requirement to collect and remit in the state when you sell economic transactions that are exempt, meaning you have a service or a product that's not taxable, but selling that into a state still triggers a requirement to collect and remit. So that's a big wake up call for a lot of Sage customers. They're kind of blissfully unaware, and making sure they understand that they still have that obligation to collect and remit in those states is very important. So that's one big piece. Now, the other side is certificates, exempt certificates, and I'll kind of jump ahead to a few slides later just to kind of keep us in line. So this is a real example of a prospect that came to us with a problem. So what happened was they got audited. And when you get a certificate, you stick it in a file folder, you scan it on your desktop, and you check a box inside of Sage to say the customer is exempt. And then everybody forgets about it. Well, what happens is those certificates are subject to expiration. They can expire at any time, right? So you could have got a certificate that expires next month. You checked a box in Sage, you forgot about it. Moving forward, you're charging that customer $0, right? So what happens is this compliance risk grows. So this customer came to us. The auditor walked in the door and says, "We're looking at a 36-month snapshot. We're looking at 3 months, right?" So they're gonna start digging. The first place they look now is certificates. And our Sage folks have a lot of construction, manufacturing, distribution, a lot of certificates. So the first place they go is certificates because they know there's a good chance you got some out of date certificates. So they can dig in easy. So in this case, the auditor found a $15,000 sale, which had an expired certificate, and that resulted in that, extrapolate 8%, that's 1,200 bucks. But instead of digging further and looking at all the certificates, the auditor doesn't have time for that. So what the auditor did was they said, okay, we're going to assume this uncollected tax across the audit period of 36 months, right? So that $1,200 problem times 36 magically becomes a 40 plus $1,000 issue, right? So that's big money real fast for not having that certificate on file. And in 2026, no certificate is the same as expired certificate. So really remember that. That's important. Before 2018, if you didn't have a certificate, auditor would slap you on the wrist, get us an updated one. Not anymore. Those days are gone. So that's a big problem. So what Avalara does is basically we take a oh, hold on, I'm jumping slides here. Let me find my slide. Here we go. So what we do is we take that certificate, we turn it into a dynamic document. So instead of just a piece of paper that you hold and you put in a file folder or scan in a desktop, we have a link. When somebody says, "Oh, we don't pay tax," you send them a link. If somebody, you can go to your website, you can drop a link in your website, say, "Are you exempt?" Click here, right? So as long as the customer has some way to go, click on that link, they enter their information. Avalara is heavily automated through artificial intelligence, and Avalara will help them fill out the form. They hit enter, it flows into the system, and now it's a dynamic document, meaning all the line items are executable. But what Avalara does behind the scenes is we're proactively reaching out to your customers. Say you've got 450 certificates, and you know 45% of them are going to expire within the next 6 months, right? So Avalara is proactively doing outreach to make sure every 90 days, hey, we see your certificate's about to expire. We need an updated certificate. Here's the link. Fill this out when you get the updated certificate from the state. And that customer is like, whoa, I didn't realize my certificate was about to expire. You look like a thought leader because you're sending the certificate. Now, when we have an invoice, you're always having your updated certificates kept up to date, right? Because the system's doing it on your behalf behind the scenes. But when we have an invoice in Sage, what happens is Avalara takes over the native tax functionality. We're going to look and ask, is there an updated certificate on file? If there's an updated certificate on file, we're going to assign zero tax. If not, we're going to look at the sale location, all the different jurisdictions that can overlap on the spot on the map, and we're going to assign the correct tax. So we're keeping you audit ready in those moments. Whereas before, that human error, check a box inside of Sage, forget about the certificate, it expires. We walk into the scenario that I previously showed. So Avalar removes that compliance and that audit gap. And when an auditor comes knocking at your door now and says, "Hey, let me see your certificates," you say, "What state? Let me run a report. I have Avalara," and they know of Avalara. This service has been in place for well over a decade. They hear the name Avalara, they're going to say, "Oh, hey, run me this report." They'll know. So that audit experience is night and day difference, right? So when we come to exempt transactions, when it comes to sales tax, we're going to automate the process, keep you out of trouble, and whether it's the invoice path is happening in Sage or say an ERP flowing into Sage or e-commerce, doesn't matter. Avalara can support you just the same, right? So from the standpoint of what else I wanted to make sure I shared, um, really, so we work with pretty much everybody, and we are rated number one in the market by all the third party marketing groups who like assess markets. So like IDC, Forrester, Trust Radius, they've put us at the top of the market in every category. Forrester went above and beyond, and they actually talked to our customers. they reached out to a bunch of our customers and they asked a ton of questions and they built a report. And in that report, it showed the value of working with Avalara. This is third party reaching out to our customers, getting back the data, right? So some of the key statistics they shared with us, and this is available publicly. You can just type in Forrester Avalara and you can get it. And I'll share a little snapshot that you can scan if you'd like. But so they looked and they saw, what's our get even point. They said takes about 6 months to make your money back when signing up with Avalara. The return on investment is quick, and the 3-year benefit for the composite customer that they came up with here, looking at a bunch of different customers, was about $800,000, and the return on investment was about 153%. So really, you're just getting time back from your teams who are focusing on managing returns. If you're in 25 states and you have a monthly filing schedule, that's a lot of work for your accounting team. And if you're managing thousands of certificates, how do you keep up with those, right? If you're getting all of these invoices in from vendors on the purchase side and you don't know if what they're sending you is even correct, how do you submit that knowing that it could be wrong? How do you check to confirm that it's right? There's so many ways that Avalara can reduce the time and not only improve accuracy to keep you compliant. The return on investment is usually pretty high, and year over year that stacks up, especially as customers expand into additional states. So your problem might be this big in one state, this big in 2 states, so on and so forth, and it gets worse and worse. And somebody might become an expert in their state that they're headquartered in, understanding the taxes in and around the area. But as you start expanding into new states with new rules, new requirements, changing laws, it gets really complicated really fast. And Avalara will help you with nexus determination, meaning understanding where you need to register. Avalara will proactively keep you up to date with economic nexus rules, help you determine where you need to register next. So the best route most of our customers who are savvy will take is they'll realize, oh, hey, we're growing, we're moving into new states. We need to sign up with Avalara now so they can help us grow, right? But so often we'll work with a Sage customer who has, say, for example, somebody who's been doing it for a long time, maybe retires, and somebody new steps into the role and they kind of step into like, oh no, we're in trouble. And they'll come to us with, we're in all these states. We're not properly registered in all the states we should be. We don't know what our accounts receivable, tax, we don't know if it's accurate. We're not applying the right tax in the right locations. Our certificates are a mess. I mean, these are conversations we have every day. Avalara can help sort all that out, get you on the right track, and get our Sage customers compliant. Because the goal is when the auditor comes knocking, that you're giving them donuts and a cup of coffee and say, what report would you like me to run, as opposed to that bead of sweat that starts trickling down your head because of all the uncertainties. And last but not least, I'll leave you with this. Typically, the cost of moving towards services like Avalara are far smaller than the cost of an average audit. So we look forward to the opportunity working with you. If you're interested in Avalara solutions, please engage your Sage partner of record or your Sage direct rep, and they'll get in contact with us, and we'll work with you and help you out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, huge time savings, huge cost savings, all of the above when dealing with sales tax and exemption certificates, that's for sure. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for the Sage ROI micro webinar. I hope you found how you can save time, money, resources, all of the above on all of these different solutions to help make your jobs easier. So thank you again for being here, and thank you to our presenters today. We hope you have a great day, and the recording email will be out soon. Thanks all.